Hello there, friend. You're about to enjoy an excellent Snaps game recap as me and Aaron tell you everything you need to know about the game of the title. Hope you enjoy. Ole Miss, LSU. How about them Tigers, dog? Look, this game has to start with the LSU defense.
Yeah.
Because that LSU offense did not give them shit early on. How about this, Aaron? LSU's offense comes out 3 and out, interception, which gave the ball to Ole Miss in the red zone. Do you know how many points Ole Miss came away with? 0. Then I think it was like another, then it was another punt, and then a turnover on downs, and that was finally when Ole Miss scored. And look, Braden Swinson just got named SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week. Zay Alexander, the cornerback coming off of an ACL, was great this game. But then how about
Whit Weeks?
Fucking Weeks, your SEC Defensive Player of the Week. 18 tackles, 10 solo, 2 tiffles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. Oh, that's the good shit.
They that's the player they talked to us about when we met with Baker and the staff, and even Kelly a couple weeks ago when we had their game. They just kept talking about Whit Weeks and Whit Weeks and Whit Weeks and Whit Weeks and how excited they were, and he's a pro linebacker, and like just on and on and on and on and on and on. And you've seen it obviously, but this was the big stage. Everyone in America now got the opportunity to see a 40s that dude at linebacker. And the conversation is going to
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I said that the sad thing is the conversation is going to continue of like, oh, LSU's better because Perkins is not out there, and that's what was holding us back. No, they just played better, and it's a young defense. It's a young defense. It's a young defense in a new system, and it's going to get better and better. And yes, maybe schematically you change it, but I'm not going to sit back and say that like, oh, LSU won this game because Harold Perkins was fucking injured.
No. It's where people. Oh, my mic is going so limp. Where people are just a bit off there is that, yes, Weeks and Penn are objectively a much better linebacking combination than was Perkins and anybody there. Perkins was being played out of position. 100%. He could have found a role on this defense. The staff would have found something for him. His talent is high enough. He would have been a great part of the defense. That said, you are better when Whit Weeks plays 100% of the snaps.
Yes.
Against USC, he was playing about 33% of the snaps, and it was going up and up and up because he was the one consistently making plays. So again, it's not about better without Harold Perkins. It's that they were playing Perkins out of position and taking their most dynamic linebacker off the field to do so. And so that's on the coaches. That's not on Perkins.
No, I agree with that.
Found a way.
You know what's crazy? Anyway. LSU didn't lead for a second of the football game.
No.
That's wild.
Like I said, they didn't lead until they did. Oh, Aaron, we had 5K people watching us after the game, watching me come in my pants, thinking about how awesome that game was. It was going crazy, dude. The Don Juan Cigar Bar was a madhouse of debauchery and celebration. Also, so it starts with the defense because, again, that's what LSU put everything into this offseason. That's where Ole Miss looked to have the big advantage. LSU's offense didn't do anything early on. Now, they came on late, obviously, which we'll get into. But second credit has to go to the LSU offensive line. 0 sacks given up against a team that was number 1 in the entire country in sacks coming in. They didn't run the ball great, but that's because Ole Miss's D-line, that interior especially, is just different. You're not going to run into mere interiors like Pegues, Nolan, and those guys. Maybe like A&M would be another one. But you still pass blocked great, even though you couldn't, you didn't run.
Does it worry you though? Like, because at least last year you had the threat of a running quarterback. Garrett is not that. Garrett in big-time games has to play elite.
Yeah.
Did he show you enough and LSU fans enough this weekend to say Garrett Nussmeier can truly put this offense on his back and win games like this over and over again?
Did you watch the game?
I did. I'm asking you as an LSU guy, like the sentiment from fans, because you cannot, you've shown now multiple times, LSU is not going to be able to run it against good defenses. They're not. They become completely one-dimensional.
I'm still, you said good defenses, right? They'll be able to run it against the majority of the schedule. But to your point, if we're talking like
A&M
championship or
Arkansas this week. You got Arkansas this week. Good D line, A&M, good D line.
You should be able to run against Arkansas. I'd be disappointed if you can't run it with more success against Arkansas. I think you can. You ran it well against South Carolina,
True.
I'm a believer that was more about Ole Miss. Maybe I'm wrong there. But no, as far as Nuss goes, Aaron, Nuss, I think, is one of the most clutch players I've ever seen.
Arkansas is number 5 in the conference in rush defense, by the way.
I guess I was just thinking about how A&M kind of ran it well, but that's A&M's entire identity, so that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm going to say that you should be. I think you're going to run with more success. I think you will. Okay. Anyway, Nuss has now a pretty eerie consistency of coming up with the drive when they have to have it. And I don't mean always at the end of the game. I mean, like, you get in a hole early on and you're like, okay, if this hole gets one score bigger, you're done. Mm-hmm. Whether it was 17-0 in South Carolina, 10-0 this game, 14-0 in the Wisconsin bowl game last year. USC got up early on them in game number 1 where it was feeling like, ooh, this could spiral a little bit. And then obviously at the end of the game, there was a 4th and 5 conversion to keep the game going. There was a 3rd and 10 scramble conversion to keep the drive going. And then there's a 4th and 6 throw to the end zone when he had a wide open first down underneath. He fucking drops his nuts, throws it to the end zone to tie it immediately. You go to OT. What does he do? First play OT, back shoulder touchdown. Let's go.
But Garrett is great. But this offense,
SEC offense player of the week.
This offense has everything you need to be able to play from behind. They have elite offensive line.
That's true. Yeah.
They have 2 of the best tackles. They have the best tackle combination in America, so they can protect. They don't give up sacks. You have an accurate quarterback. And you got great receivers and one of the best tight ends in America as well. And Mason Taylor. So like you should never feel like we can't come from behind because your offense is built to score fast and throw the football.
Yeah.
So
they got to start a little faster, but yes,
it would be nice. But like between Kyron and Aaron and Mason and et cetera, like it's a great offense.
Down like 3 receivers, 3 receivers this game. Okay, the last thing I'll say, I know I'm making like an LSU love fest, but it was like the stadium. That was Tiger Stadium at its peak. They were celebrating 100 years. It's night, and that definitely played a huge factor 100%. In this.
We saw it in both games. Oregon, Eugene fans did their part. Tiger Stadium did their part. Stanford Stadium take some notes. Stanford Stadium take some notes.
Well, y'all can't. Y'all are spoiled. Y'all are like Alabama. You can't do it. It just can't be done. No. Y'all would never rush the field, right?
I don't know if Georgia's ever rushed the field.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's ever happened.
Exactly, because the vibes have never been so high as to rush the field. Why are the vibes never reaching that height? Because you don't have the insecurity of ever being a loser. And so, like, I don't, at least not recently.
Maybe next year, because there's 3 big home games next year. Maybe when Georgia actually beats Alabama in a regular season game in 2025, maybe then they'll rush the field and say the whole game.
Okay. Oh, this is what I was going to say, and then we'll get to Ole Miss.
Nudge. Wait, LSU stormed the field for that one? Hell yeah, you stormed the field for that one. That game was fucking awesome.
Immaculate. The vibes have to control. Yeah,
you have to.
You could feel it. You could feel it building all day. Nobody wants to mess up their precious hedges, says Ben. Chip, we're not a bunch of hillbillies. I take offense to that. I love hillbillies, but that's Appalachian people. Okay, we're fucking swamp people. Okay, Get it right. Like if you want to call us rednecks, it might be a little more accurate, but I'd prefer to be called like, I don't know, like Nutri-Rats or something like that, or coon asses. But I don't know if you can say that anymore. It's a Cajun thing. Anyway, last thing on
rushed the field against Florida in 2007. The players did. The players did. I don't remember the fans.
Okay. Anyway, hold on. I hate the rush the field conversation. So fucking dumb. Just let it happen. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, let it happen.
The LSU front 7 Like, we knew Braden Swenson's a beast. He's now second to Kennard in sacks in the SEC. Savion Jones has played well, right? But the front seven's development, especially on the interior defensive line, these guys are not superstars, but they're getting better every week. And that's one of the reasons why you see Penn and Weeks playing so well, is they're starting to fight up front, free up those linebackers, not make it easy to play to get to the second level. It's a real validation of the millions invested in changing this staff over in the offseason.
6 sacks.
Yeah, I know.
6 fucking sacks.
Which is also, that's a function of the crowd. Never forget that, guy.
Yeah, 100%.
Because the tackles are having to go on, they're having
defensive
to go
movement
as well. They can't hear anything. So you take away one of the inherent advantages of the O-line. Now let's talk about Ole Miss. Because I don't know that you could have had a more disappointing first half of the season after the offseason that you had. That we all fell in love with you, right? Even we came around to being like, actually, I think Ole Miss might actually be the best of that next bunch.
Yeah.
And this is going to be almost a guaranteed playoff year. They would have made the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. And now you're 1-2 in the SEC.
You know what's funny, T? So T and I, we started the season off. We had our tier 1 teams, Georgia, Texas, Alabama. We then had our next tier team.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU. And what did we say? Of the 4, who is the least likely to make the playoffs?
LSU was the last.
We said LSU is the last one of the 4. Now all of a sudden, Mizzou's not technically done.
No, I know not done, but you know what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah, but it looks like Ole Miss is done. Tennessee looks terrible. Yeah. Missouri's, had their one opportunity. And they got freaking blown out by A&M. And then LSU, our last one of the tier 2, it comes out smelling like roses right now.
And look at USC, who beat him completely and fallen apart now. And it's funny because I like USC. Apart. No, they're not falling apart. It's funny.
That's a good fucking football team, which is
I actually completely agree with you. So
that's a damn good football team.
Let's wrap up Ole Miss and we'll get there because I do agree with that. For Ole Miss, though, this is devastating in more ways than one. They can still save the season. You beat Georgia, you can still save it. But the reason why this is potentially more devastating than just this being a single loss is if you fail to follow through on the optimism of this season, who knows if that investment will ever come back, right? Because it was a perfect storm of events that led to real buy-in from the fan base and the $10 million being allocated to put it into this roster, getting this team together. They had the whole offseason where their theme was Last Dance, like they were the Bulls on their final run. And if it blows up, you're not going to have the high school recruiting to fall back on, and you may not have the dollars that you had to spend this year to fall back on. So Ole Miss has to do a real nut check right now because there is zero margin of error for them for the rest of the season. And who knows the long-term ramifications it could have for the program.
And I still think Lane is going to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think he was staying because of the thought of how good the season was going to be. If that Florida job comes open and he knows he's not going to get the investment like he did this year, I think Lane's going to Florida. And I've heard multiple people say that Lane wants that job. So
that's what a winner, that's what a loss will do. That's what a big loss.
I think Lane stayed for this season. Jackson Dart's gone. He loves the next quarterback, but the next quarterback in line is actually from the state of Florida, and he can transfer with Lane to Florida if he wanted to. I think if they lose to Georgia and Billy Napier gets fired here soon, Lane will be in Gainesville.
Chance says, T-Bob, my 9-year-old loved the first 10 minutes of Whiskey and Wine. He knows not to repeat a word of it. Oof. Jeez. Don't let your kids watch that show. What'd you think about Jackson Dart?
Not as bad. He hasn't played well the past couple weeks, I feel like. I had him at his peak. He played an incredible football game, and then it's just been
I think it kind of mid.
I know, but I think its offensive line too has been mid.
Yeah,
I mean, it starts up front. I mean, we could just talk about LSU. Like, why is LSU in their offense built to have success in the passing game? Because you have an elite offensive line that can give your quarterback time and great playmakers on the outside. I think Ole Miss has a really good quarterback, very talented receivers, but an offensive line that in their 2 losses has been horrendous this year. I mean, how many sacks did they give up versus Kentucky?
Oh, I don't know. Against
Kentucky had 4 sacks in that football game. It's just the offensive line versus these, it just has not been great up front for Jackson. And not saying that Jackson's has been great in those 2 games. He hasn't. He has not performed the way we anticipate him to play, but the offensive line has been a big disappointment for Ole Miss.
Yeah, and he got a bit unlucky. I mean, Ole Miss had a 75-yard touchdown to the best receiver in the country.
One pick was fucking terrible. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The pick. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, yes. And he could have thrown a pick in that first overtime that would have been really awful. The last third down, it was just like he basically threw it to Zy Alexander. He was hurting by the end of that game, though. He really started to get hit at the end of the third quarter on. Like, it started to snowball on him a bit. King Ween, I think this is worth engaging with because he says, I better hear the same criticism about Ohio State as I'm hearing about Ole Miss when it comes to money and assets. So I think if I didn't do a good job of explaining, I think we're missing a fundamental difference here, which is that money, like absolutely, if Ohio State doesn't follow through this year with something big, Big Ten championship first and foremost, that's a gotta have it. Then beating Michigan's the base level, gotta have it. Then Big Ten, then we'll see the playoffs. But the difference is the investment will still be there for Ohio State. That $20 million, I don't believe is going anywhere. You'll be able to maybe lessen a bit, but like they still have high school recruiting. They still have a lot of years planned out in the future. Ole Miss is in a very all-in sort of moment right now.
They put all their chips in. But you also have to think Ohio State lost to Oregon, who's being funded by Phil Knight. So I mean, the money on that field was very similar, where the money where Ole Miss and LSU, as you've kind of illustrated before, was different. LSU doesn't have as much financial investment as Ole Miss does this season.
Not in this.
I would say Oregon probably has a very similar salary cap to
Oregon's getting up to 20? Because I only hear about Texas and Ohio State being at like 20. But
I think everyone just says like we don't know a specific dollar because we just know that Phil Knight's behind it. So we just say, okay, whatever they need, they're getting.
Hell hath no deep pockets like a billionaire on the edge of death. Mm-hmm. Zach says Ryan Day is the Michael Jordan of James Franklin's. That is really funny. All right. So last thoughts on LSU, Ole Miss, anything else?
LSU, man, you got 2 big games.
And
you got 2 big games.
Yeah, at Arkansas, at A&M. Ooh, hate going back-to-back road conference games.
And in Alabama still.
Fuck it. I don't know where it's all going to go, but I'll be damned if Saturday night won one of the best fucking days ever.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I'd say that was informative and fun. If you agree, please hit the like button, sub, and we'll see you next time for some more snaps.